Take a look around this room. One of the great privileges I've had with my job with SBG and teaching martial arts is I've had an opportunity to travel all over the world, all the different continents, every part of this globe. And wherever I go, I always like to visit different churches and temples. I like the architecture. I like the environment. I like the quiet. If you think about this, this is something innate to mankind. And by that, I don't mean to make the mistake and say because it's ubiquitous, because it's everywhere, it therefore, by definition, must be useful. That's not how evolution works. It's ubiquitous because it's good at replication. Whether or not it's useful or beneficial or harmful is another conversation. But it's replicated itself forever for one reason that is definitely, I think we can definitely chalk up as being very useful. And that's the fact that we as human beings, as social primates, need to gather together. One of the things that I think is important is that you find your tribe. You find people around you who share your values and who can help you become a better human being, help you advance your community, your family in a way that's positive for the world. And to me, when I think about tribe, that's what that word means. So when we were thinking about how we'd launch this video podcast, it's a big organization. There's a lot of things we do. There's a lot of concepts and principles we teach. There's a lot of athletes, a lot of coaches, a lot of subjects we could talk about. But when I thought about it, I realized that the first episode really needs to be about what it really is all about. It needs to be about tribe. So let me introduce you to ours.
Is there one story that kind of encapsulates why you got into martial arts as a kid?
You know, I grew up in a small town, Hollister, California.
Right.
It's kind of the Central Valley of California, just south of the Bay Area. And I always read. I was, my brother and I are 16 years apart, and I had moved out of the house before he was born. So I was more or less a single, only child, and I just read a lot. So I would go to the library a lot. And I think from the first time I was exposed to martial arts, seeing the martial arts magazines at the library, and the books, and then I remember the first time I saw Bruce Lee on a black and white television when one of his old movies, aired on television.
Right.
And I remember when Enter the Dragon, I was a young boy. I didn't go see the movie when I was a boy because my parents weren't into that. But I remember the movie coming to our town. This would have been probably 1974, somewhere in there.
Uh-huh.
And I think if, in hindsight, in retrospect, if I look back from a very early age, I've kind of always known I wanted to do something related to martial arts. I've always been kind of obsessed with martial arts.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu? I started in '88 in Horion's garage and got hooked ever since. And I've been doing martial arts kind of my whole life. It was one of those things like so many in this jiu-jitsu thing. We began with the other martial arts, mostly as kids, the Asian martial arts, watching kung fu movies. I was obsessed with karate, kung fu, all that stuff growing up. Just kind of always was obsessed with martial arts, fighting, the primal need for security, real or imagined. It's a very male thing.
As men, we expect ourselves to be able to fight. Whether we've trained to fight or not, it's just built into our DNA that we're the fighters, we're the warriors. And so, the first time I got on the mat, I didn't expect to lose. I expected to win. I'd never trained jiu-jitsu. When I touched hands with Eric Hemphill for the first time, he was a blue belt back then.
He is a freaking monster.
Yeah.
I went through my wars in my own head, like, you know, fed up, fuck this. Didn't really have, you know, a lot of coaching. We had tough guys that had the will to do it without anybody telling them to do it. You know, Matt Thornton was a great mentor, a guy to look up to. I mean, it's just like God to us. I mean, for me, I was looking up to Matt Thornton going, fuck, that guy is my worst fear, you know, like so scared of that guy, like 6'8" with like steel toe boots and and a stick, you know, back when we do that shit. And I'm like, man, I mean, he's really inspirational, really got me to want to do all of this. And he really took it to the next level. I mean, you know, really pushed me, you know, to be better. I didn't even get to train directly with Matt all the time because they were Portland guys and Seattle.
You okay? Dude, you almost choked me out. That's not slack.
I mean, a lot of these guys really have a lot of credit to give to Matt Thornton. I mean, they just won't. I don't know why. I don't know what the fuck their problem is, but he's one of the greatest, you know, that's ever came. That's why I'm here. I mean, he inspired me. He inspired Tom, he inspired Michael, and no matter what anybody says, like, that guy brought it to all of us and made us do it in a way that made us tougher than everyone else.
But I went in there trying to kill him, you know? I lost, right? Yeah. But I expected to win. That's not really rational, but it's kind of built into us as men to think that of ourselves. And the movies teach us that too. Yeah. I mean, how many people walking down the street have an idea of what they're capable of and what they think's going to happen if they were to get into a fight?
Right.
You asked for it. You obviously came here looking for a fight. I think I might be in need of some practice. Come on, let's have you then.
You'll be sorry for that.
Don't come at me just one at a time, but all at once. Now, come on, let's have you. 1, 2, 3.
The reason I started and wanted to get into martial arts when I started training in my friend's garage was because I was working bartending and I had to throw a guy out one night. And he was a big guy and I was lucky I didn't get hit or anything, but I mean, I didn't know what I was doing and I was scared to death, you know? And I was like, man, I want to know what to do. If the guy would have swung at me, I didn't want to be the guy that froze and got hit and got the hell beat out of me. And it wasn't something that was going to go away. I had to go to work the next weekend, and if somebody got acted up and needed throwing out, I might very well have to be that guy again. So, or, you know, for the same thing on the street.
My grandpa, who was a boxer back in the Depression, and he was born in 1900, and he boxed in the 20s too, and they would wrap their hands in cotton and have basically bare knuckle fights. And when he would watch the kung fu movies, he would critique, say that stuff won't work.
I don't want to find out on the street that I spent 15 years practicing the martial art to defend myself and find out while I'm laying in the hospital or be dead because I was wrong and didn't train hard and took a few lumps in the gym along the way, you know, under controlled circumstances where I'm working with a partner and not an opponent, where I could actually, you know, learn and have a safety net where I could stop if the need was to be there, but actually push the limits to find out, again, what works and what doesn't in real time with that aliveness. Aliveness is what fighting is all about. I mean, it's to me, when I'm teaching a class, you want to incorporate that as much as possible. The definition, just to define it, would be, you know, being able to move with timing and motion to do the act of whatever it is you're doing. Everybody in sports has this. I mean, this is not me speaking so much. I mean, Matt's preached this so much, but I think the analogy is one that's really good, is that every other sport trains alive. I mean, football players don't go out and pretend to throw a ball and pretend to catch a ball and pretend to run with it to score a touchdown. They go out and they throw a ball and they catch it and they have somebody, you know, running down to tackle them, and that's how you get better. Basketball players don't go and pretend to shoot a basketball.
You know, they go out and they shoot basketballs and they put somebody on guarding them, and that way when game time comes up, they're ready to play. They're used to the pressure. They know what it's like to actually shoot, what it's like to actually have somebody in front of them guarding, and fighting's no different. And unfortunately, a lot of the martial arts have gotten away with, away from that for some reason, and they think that practicing what they do, in other words, punching in the air against somebody who's not there, or having a set block, with a cooperative opponent as opposed to an uncooperative opponent, with such a strict set of rules, you're never going to really learn how to fight.
Aliveness is made of 3 basic qualities. The first is energy. That means your training partner is giving you some kind of resistance, like an actual opponent would, swinging the stick the way a real opponent would swing the stick, as an example. Or in this case, actually resisting an arm lock the way an actual opponent will. That's the kind of energy you want to train against in a street fight. The second quality is timing. It always has to have an intrinsic sense of timing, no matter what you're doing. Classic example is the difference in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu between a really good, say, blue belt and a black belt. The blue belt may know all the same techniques as the black belt, verbatim. They may know everything the black belt knows, but there's still a huge expanse in skill, a huge difference. And that difference is the timing. The black belt's capable of executing his moves with the right timing, when it's appropriate. You only get that kind of timing from rolling around against a resisting opponent. You're not going to get it from practicing drills. You're not going to get it from memorizing locks. You're not going to get it from knowing 40 variations of an arm lock when your opponent only knows 2. You're going to get that feel only from rolling around. It comes from experience and it comes from seasoning. That's the only difference, really, between a real good blue belt and a real good black belt. The third quality is motion. You always have to have motion in anything you're doing. Footwork always needs to be there. When you're hitting somebody, they're going to move. When they're going to hit you, they're going to be moving too. So if you're practicing in a static position, that's not going to help you.
I started training in this guy's garage basement, and he had a big enough mat to hold about 3 people. Nobody wore gis. There weren't any jiu-jitsu videotapes or anything out, and so we were kind of making it up.
Well, I'm glad you survived.
Me too.
I see a lot of things going horribly wrong.
Well, some things did.
A lot of us came from the same background where we were doing some very silly stuff back in the day. Silly ways to train, silly stick and knife fighting, and just other things that were just kind of off the wall.
Most martial arts, not all, but most have pretty solid theory. And then in practice, it's gone. The two are completely divorced.
Various extraneous things that we were doing at the time, because we thought we had to.
One thing guys always say is, if my hand's out there, can he grab my hand and do some sort of Aikido, crazy, whatever? What do you think? Probably not. Probably not, right? Also, everybody in this room does jits, right? Yeah. So if they grab your hand, it's like, okay, dude. All right, game on, motherfucker, right? So if I come in contact, if I try to do this stuff, what's that tell him? Do something. Move, right? If I do this, he has his hands out, he stops, and I do that, what's that tell him? Time to go. All right, that's my launch signal. All right, you just go NASCAR on that motherfucker. All right? Stomp on the accelerator, turn left. All right, so here's our next step. So now what I want us to do is, let me have a number 3. Haley's on number 3. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to engage him, and all I want you to do now is as you move.
Like we knew we shouldn't be doing them, like it was a waste of time, but we couldn't really kick that belief that, well, you have to do it, and then someday the light comes on.
I was always looking for something where the theory actually met the practice.
I've been involved in the martial arts for a very long time. Put into karate when I was a child.
And while we're doing karate, we're also wrestling, and like, why can't we take any of you down? Why are we stuck in this skill set of, or this, why there are all these things we can do? And we gotta stand certain ways and weird stances and hands down, and we can't take you down, and we can't wrestle and grapple. But
came up through the JKD ranks and was unhappy. We saw
the lack of aliveness. So over time, we just sort of realized that that wasn't it. Then we started moving into this other stuff. And then over time, you realize, well, this still isn't real either. Like maybe this was a little bit more real than that, but it's still not real.
That's after Mark Kerr. Here comes Spider Guard, right? It's all an evolution. It's all an evolution. How do I not get headbutted? How do I keep that head away? Does that head and those hands want me? And how do I do that? Now,
I remember being in a karate. I was in classical Shotokan karate, and the instructor would kind of say when something wouldn't work, just wait when you're older, or it will, or it'll work when you're a brown belt, it'll work when you're a black belt. It was always something just out there. If you could just learn it enough, it'll work.
And then I saw an ad in a martial arts magazine, and it said aliveness, and it had a picture of this big guy. So I got in touch with Matt on email, and I bought all the DVDs at the company. Well, they were VHS back then. I hate to date myself. I bought every one of them, and I watched them, and it was like, damn, like he's saying what I'm saying.
Ideologically, we were on the same page, which is things need to be tested. Right. And we both were seeing the failings.
I liked what Matt was doing. He was kind of in the magazines. He was online. I was like, yes, 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 yes.
Matt had kind of codified it first. So he was the first guy that I talked to that was saying everything that I was thinking but couldn't get out yet.
Everything he was saying and writing was true and just resonated with me. I liked his philosophy.
Matt's got this like-mindedness about the martial arts, and as we did, and he's got sort of the knowledge that we want to have. And
it really, back then, 10 years ago, it was his philosophy. I mean, there wasn't a Travis, and there weren't these other people contributing, Steve Whittier and these other people.
He's like, listen, if you box and wrestle and do jiu-jitsu, you'll be okay. Like, that's all you need. You know, we don't need all this other stuff that's doing nothing.
And jiu-jitsu was the first time I really felt like the theoretical, technical instruction totally transferred 100% into sparring or fighting or whatever.
After about 4 years of training, I took a fight, and well, I'd done a few fights at this stage, but 4 years into it, I traveled to South Africa to do a professional MMA fight. And while I was there, actually the guy who was cornering my opponent, it turned out he was teaching a seminar the next day. Well, I lost the fight, and I heard that this guy was teaching a class the next day, and I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to maybe learn the mistakes I made, and just another opportunity to train with a high-level jiu-jitsu and MMA coach.
I did shoot a street fighting video. I just didn't release it because 3/4 of it we were kind of having fun, like taking a piss, as the British would say. We were joking around with the whole subject, like our knife defense, right? Where this guy has a knife, and then you zoom out and you realize they're on a track, and then one guy just runs as fast as he can around the track while the other person chases him. And we're like, should I put this out? And I'm like, no. So I think Steve and 2 or 3 other people were the only people that saw it. But my other reason behind that is because the whole subject kind of pisses me off. It hits a nerve, and I'll tell you why. So you have things like Krav Maga and Systema, Systema is ridiculous, right? Anybody that looks at a Systema video and thinks that might work, you need to take a critical thinking class. But so you have these different arts, and what happens is a lot of people, they're insecure, and they have this idea, they want to learn how to fight, and they have this idea of like it would be cool to be like Steven Seagal and beat up like 2 or 3 football players in the parking lot while your girlfriend happened to be there watching, that kind of thing. And the Krav Maga guys, this is like Israeli military fighting art, that kind of thing, they exploit those weaknesses.
I knew Coach Matt online before I ever saw him in person, through interacting with him on forums and reading articles and things that he wrote. And when I first started reading his stuff, I was really super upset because he challenged everything that I thought to be true about martial arts, and I disliked him immensely.
Because what's more likely? You're going to get attacked by two guys with a knife and have to do some kind of Russian commando shit, or you're going to die of a heart attack because your cholesterol's too high. So if you're really interested in self-defense, you get in shape, take care of your body, you put your seatbelt on when you drive, you wouldn't be like 450 pounds in camouflage. So right away we know there's psychological cognitive dissonance with these people. But anyway, they get exploited by those guys who tell them that they're teaching street fighting stuff. And then if they go with the system and stay long enough, which costs lots of money, eventually they get to the end and they have to take an instructor's test. And you know what the instructor's test is? It's an MMA bout. And you know where they go to train for that? My gym. So I've had like 6 or 7 guys that were going for their high-level Krav Maga test, and they come to my gym to learn boxing and wrestling and MMA. And I put them on the mat with a blue belt, or God forbid, in the cage with one of my amateur MMA fighters, and they just get tortured because they have absolutely no idea how to fight. And there you go. So, and here's the other point. Besides just the reality of that fact, that once they get in a fight, and then the delivery systems kick in once the adrenaline's going, and then it's back to just how good of a wrestler, boxer, and jiu-jitsu player are you.
But his arguments made such good sense that I couldn't break them apart. And so eventually, over time, I swung around to his way of thinking because it was more logical and because it was true.
Besides that fact, if you take that same group of people that's getting exploited by them, is scared and insecure, and after 10 years of doing it, is going to be more scared and insecure because the shit that they're doing doesn't really work. Or they're going to be delusional and maybe pick a fight with the wrong person and then discover it the hard way. If you give me that same group of people after a year or 2 years, doing what we do, just the sports part, whether it's just wrestling or just jiu-jitsu or any of that, then they become more confident. They actually do learn some skills that they could apply in a fight. And all those benefits that they thought they were going to get from street Aikido or Krav Maga or whatever the bullshit is, they actually get from what we do from sports. So that's why the whole street fighting thing, mindset, is backwards, right? Just keep that in mind. So that's why I don't really cater to that audience. Having said that, it is fun when we do take the jiu-jitsu and what you say. Look how easily you can beat somebody up and do this kind of stuff. It is enjoyable. So we're taking advantage of that part right now.
You met my son.
There's 3 ways you're going to win that fight, okay? Assuming they're not just going to run away or police or friends are going to come in and break it up. Either major bodily trauma from knocking them unconscious or breaking joints on their body, or you choke them, or they run away. That's it. And of those 3 ways, like you can't count on the fact they're going to run away, and you can't count on major bodily trauma. This story I used to tell is absolutely true, but you guys remember Randall Tex Cobb? Mm-hmm. He's a movie star. He was raised in Arizona. He usually plays a biker. But what you might not know, if you guys aren't as old as I am, is he used to be a heavyweight boxer. He did have a championship fight with Larry Holmes. And that was back when I think it was 15 rounds. 15 rounds. He went 15 rounds with Larry Holmes. And let me tell you something about Randall Texas Cobb. As a boxer, he kind of sucks. Like, he doesn't really have any defense. He doesn't know how to slip. Wasn't that guy. So what I'm telling you is for 15 rounds, Larry Holmes hit him as hard as he could in the head, and Randall Tex Cobb stood there and never got knocked down once. What that tells me is you could give me a baseball bat, and I won't be able to knock Randall Tex Cobb down. It's just not going to happen. And funny story, one of my friends that knows him, that's what happened. He got in some kind of altercation, got out of his truck, some guys ran behind him, hit him in the back of the head with a baseball bat. He turned around, grabbed the baseball bat, and knocked the guys out. So, point behind my story is you have people out there that are walking around like this through natural selection, some kind of genetic mutation or whatever, and you can't depend on winning fights by beating people unconscious. And you know, all kinds of police officers have all kinds of stories of people on methamphetamine or crack or tequila and whatever combination thereof, and they get in a domestic altercation with their dad who hits them in the throat with a golf club or whatever. Police arrive and there's a guy going crazy and there's a steak knife sticking out of his head. He's been hit twice in the back of the face with a mallet, and then he's still going. And it takes 8 or 9 of those cops to get this guy down and control him. Happens every day. So having said all that, the only surefire way you have to put somebody out, no matter how much crack they smoked that morning, is a choke. Because once you cut off their blood supply, no matter how big they are, you count to 3, they're going to go to sleep. And then you can tie them to a tree and do whatever you want. So that's why it's always good when you're thinking street instead of thinking punch, punch, punch. Even though, there's a part of us from our ancestors which, enjoys that, it's good just to put them away with a choke. And with a t-shirt, the simplest one is this one.
We have a real philosophy. This goes through all the gyms. Matt's modeled that very well, and that is very much that we're coaches and that we're working and we're athletes. And so very much Matt is in his exploration with his game and developing. We've seen that, we model that, and so we bring that to our students. That idea of coaching, that we're a workshop, that or a laboratory, and we're there working material.
That's one of the things that draws me to keep working out with him too, is that I've never heard him brag about any one of his matches, and I mean, he pretty much whoops on everybody at the gym. I mean, he's a big guy to boot, but I mean, his skill level is pretty phenomenal. I mean, he's a talented fighter, but you'll never see him bragging about it. I've never seen him putting anybody else down for the way that they approach things, even from other gyms, that don't approach things the same way. I mean, he definitely will tell you that he does not agree with it.
Can't delude myself into doing nonsense and thinking that that's somehow making me a better human being or making people that I'm going to teach that said nonsense to better human beings. And when you're getting a black belt in 4 years because you learned some katas and some EPOW, it's all bullshit. I'm 300 pounds overweight, but yet I've got a black belt. Yeah. And if I had to defend myself against an aggressive, somewhat in shape human being who knows nothing, like before I even get the punch, I've probably already had a heart attack.
This was 15 years ago at the gym, or longer.
Yeah.
I think I've been doing it for 17, 18 years now. If this was that long ago, then my answer would probably be a little different.
Yeah, so it was very different then. For people that aren't familiar with the old SBG, to me it was the strong survive, right?
Well, I mean, I take an approach that I learned in the Army, which is, you put people through a lot of conditioning.
Right.
You test people as much as possible. You set up these conditions where they're basically forced to survive and learn, and we go back and drill our mistakes or drill tools that would help us in that environment and then put it back in. That works.
Sure.
And that's how you train Navy SEALs.
So we always had the curriculum and the what I would call the focus on fundamentals, which made people at all levels great grapplers, great strikers, great mixed martial artists.
Back then, the gym wasn't like it is today. I mean, Matt would admit it too. The gym was actually the polar opposite of what it is today.
When people think old school SBG, this is what they're primarily thinking about.
The MLK gym.
The MLK gym. I mean, you say MLK gym, a lot of stuff immediately comes to mind.
Yes, it does.
God, and this was just a parking lot, man. No windows.
Nope.
You have the dumpster right there. Lucky to get a parking spot. A bunch of roughnecks coming out. The MLK spot.
Yeah.
How long were you here, Matt?
I was here for about, I'm going to say, between 12 and 15 years.
Jeez.
14 years. Long time.
Well, how come you never negotiated a remodel like this, man?
Yeah. This was our space here.
It's crazy. It definitely did not look that good.
No. 14 years.
Jeez.
This was old wood doors. This was all wood frames. Gorillas on the front. There was a big gorilla.
That's
painted
right.
by Ewan Moore.
We just didn't know any better, and so it was kind of one of those things where we were weeding out the weak.
Right.
My brother and I were already tough guys,
Yeah.
or tougher than the average person, right? So for us, we stuck around. But I mean, I watched guys just get run out. Run out.
Cooper, why don't you throw on some gloves and a mouthpiece? You get to come in here and we're going to talk about knockouts. I'm going to let Robert knock him out. You'll want to turn the camera off for a minute.
You wind up weeding out a whole bunch of people, and what happens in the long run is you wind up teaching martial arts to people who are already tough.
Yes.
And you wind up weeding out people who were a little bit soft.
At the start, I guess we were, almost everybody involved in the organization was quite competitive. Matt was competing then, I was competing then, we were all kind of competing and fighting. And we were very obsessed with finding the best techniques in all the ranges, stand-up, clinch and ground.
It's something I've never seen Matt done before, and it was probably the last time. I said, okay, grab a partner and let's roll. And for about an hour, Matt Kalak smashed everyone. Immediately after that, everyone was very, very attentive. SBG.
Again, in hindsight, I stuck with the older training paradigm of training too rough for way too long.
The first time sucked. It really did. Oh my God. If you want to fight, it's a bitch. It's a tough road to hoe. You got to put on headgear. You got to put on gloves and some elbow pads and knee pads, and you're gonna take your lumps now and then if you really want to learn how to fight.
Things I remember one time, speaking of Follis, who's gone on to be, to great success in the sport.
Yeah.
He was with me for about 7 or 8 years. And I remember one time he came to me with a long list of things that we needed to do to improve the gym.
Okay.
No doubt he was sincere in his desire just to help out. I mean, he was making a living at that point with me as well. And it didn't even register as something I should do. I mean, in hindsight, I look back and I think that's kind of insane that you're feeding your family with this business. Here's somebody coming to you with what was very practical suggestions, if I remember correctly. And I just was not able to, I just didn't even give it any credence. And I think he realized from my demeanor or whatever, I was a bit dismissive of it and just kind of put it in a drawer and walked off. And that was the end of it. But I had a lot of interactions with people that way because just be very blunt and very honest with people, which is both good and bad.
Sure.
And not the smartest when it came to recognizing that there were a lot of people that really wanted to help and were offering suggestions as it relates to business and other things, or all kinds of things related to the organization. And more often than not, I just had to do things my way.
So my whole thing is, you guys have skill, you have jiu-jitsu. So after a few months of jiu-jitsu, if somebody comes up and does this to you, are you intimidated anymore? You may not be happy. It may be a little stressful because it's a confrontation and all of that, but are you intimidated by what's happening right now? No. Everybody in here, 6 months, you're going to deal with this, okay? Even if somebody's really strong and they're squeezing, they can only do that and then you're going to escape. But if all of a sudden you're forced to deal with it,
and I just always had this feeling as things were so grassroots, it's not like, oh, let's go Globo Gym or something. That was never it, because you never want the core values to be compromised. I just felt we are so undervalued. It would annoy the shit out of me when, I don't go on forums anymore, but when I did, and used to help Matt and Lewis and things like that, kind of debate people on forums about aliveness. But, it's like, even years later, people is, who are they? Or it sometimes oh, those JKD guys and stuff. No. We're so unappreciated. And it's not about pats on the back. It's just, on an organizational level, we are light years ahead of other organizations, period. When it comes to the full scope of functional martial arts. It's just nobody else understands it on the same level, frankly, and can scale it and teach it to as broad of a range of people, from UFC fighters and the champ all the way through to 50, 60-year-old men and women, things like that, to little kids. It is just super unique.
this is protected, and I'm also not doing this. Everybody sees? my hands are in the right place, but they're way too wide. So somebody is going to punch me right down the middle. So instead I close this so my backhand, okay?
That's really what the motivation was, you know. So it's providing for your families, like not having to be the starving artist. But it was also about just saying, like, we could organize this in such a way that we just adopt best business practices. You know, we come up with the same level of structural integrity within our academies and with the organization that we have with that philosophy that is so unique and so special. And that's really what it was about. So, you know, I had coaching, and then I got the other, you know, I had to browbeat Travis a little bit.
If it wasn't for Steve a few years ago just nagging me, I would still be broke. Okay, he's actually the guy who brought business to the organization, which also brought professionalism, which has also helped be 100% responsible for the resurgence of SBG and the continued growth. So I'll for always be indebted to Steve for that.
But you know, the thing is, once Travis gets it and once he makes up his mind, then he goes all in. You know, he has to believe in something first, and that again is an integrity piece. You know, Matt was like typical, you know, where we'll just talk for days about a topic and, you know, get real in depth into it and just, you know, bounce questions or whatever back and forth. And he had a lot of questions about, you know, this and this, and he respected me enough to give me the leeway to say, well, this is why I think this is a good way to do it, and you know, no, I don't like this, but I do see how this is valuable, and challenged a few things, and then you say, okay, that makes sense, and then you know, he started to talk to some of the other people about, you know, this is the direction we should go. We can still have everything we have, but we can be more professional. We can help the organization grow and the people within it grow, and not having to be starving artists and not have to close their schools. That has nothing to do with selling out. That just means, you know, kind of catching up with the world in terms of professionalism.
And it took me a while to realize that because I had my own, you know, maturity and growth to go through. That's part of the evolution of the organization.
And once we did that, you just saw what happened. I mean, part of it is synchronicity of certain things coming together that could be coincidence. But I don't think it's all coincidence. I just think that everybody sort of said, yeah, we can be the real, you know, martial arts scientists. We can have this big impact on the philosophy that even if people aren't aware of it, it's coming from us. Like the ripple effects, it's coming from us. It's coming from SBG. We can have a big impact on that philosophy, but we can also have a successful organization with successful schools, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Realizing I needed to take a long, hard look at what we've been doing and had to change things.
Now that the program's changed a little bit and evolved, which that's what I love about SBGI, is that it's always evolving. You know, if we're doing something that can be done better, then you better believe that's going to happen for sure.
But as time has gone on, a really nice development with Straight Blast Gym that was there from the beginning in a way, but maybe not quite as strongly talked about as it is now. It was to make that a very efficient way of training, open to everybody.
And one of the great beauties of what we do is that you can take someone who's not tough and make them tough. Right. And it took me a while to realize that.
Hi, I'm Salome Thornton, owner of SBG Portland and wife of Matt Thornton. And I'd like to tell you about my first ever experience of Straight Blast Gym. It was about, I want to say 13 years ago when I was 18. And I went to my first Matt Thornton seminar in Iceland, where we first met. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of girls training at all. Granted, I am a 13-year white belt because I just got back into it. And the reason why is because I was one of the only girls that was training at the time, and I kept getting injured because some of the guys were being a little bit rough. And my first ever experience of my husband was during that seminar. I asked a question where we were working on triangle chokes, And the guy I was partnered with, he kept lifting me up and body slamming me back down when I was trying to work on my technique. And so my question was, what do I do when somebody does that to me? And Matt looked at my partner and said, first of all, that's a dick move. And then looked at me and told me how to fix the problem. And it kind of blew me away, because that was sort of my first ever experience of somebody just being so straightforward and honest and kind of standing up for the little guy, or sort of keeping it real that way.
What we have developed is we've developed the delivery of the curriculum. And the delivery of the curriculum now is done in such a way so that we take people from walk off the street, not done any combat sport, to blue belt in less than 2 years in many circumstances. That's pretty incredible. That's pretty incredible.
I've been all over the world. I've never been a part of something like this where everywhere I go, whether it's Ireland or Canada or California, the vibe.
One tribe, one vibe. It's the vibe that Matt Thornton has introduced, and it has attracted just the right people.
You walk into a gym and it looks like Straight Blast Gym, where you see a huge variety of people.
They're an accountant,
a doctor,
some kind of office worker,
a lawyer, a construction worker.
Unathletic, super good athletes, older people, younger people.
They got 2 or 3 kids.
And just all variety in between.
And so they might only have 2 nights a week that they can get in here. And we can turn them into a savage in 2 years. It's amazing.
You know what's unique about SBG? Most of our black belts are also PhDs. This is a group of very smart people doing a very jockey sport. You're dealing with professors, like you're dealing with intellectuals.
Right.
It's rare.
Let me tell you something about this, though, because this is something I've had conversation with my wife about. I talked to Matt and Steve Whittier and all those guys, like the guys I've been with forever, about everything from jiu-jitsu to philosophy to politics to et cetera, et cetera. And when I talked to my wife about having an argument about, I got to get ready for camp and read this book so I can debate with Matt about this, she's like, isn't that a martial arts organization? I'm like, that's the least important part. Like, this is an organization put together to find the truth, and we happen to direct it at martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with aliveness. We drive towards that, but then we investigate everything that way. And so it's not about just martial art.
I love it. I love the material. I love the curriculum.
If I didn't do jiu-jitsu, that I would probably be a very unhappy husband. Miserable person.
I love every minute of being able to do it.
I love the tribe.
I love these people.
It's a family for me.
This is my family. Like, these are people I've trained with and seen for 15 years.
The godparents of my children are John Kavanaugh and Carl Tansworth.
I've watched them grow up. I've watched them become coaches. I know they're fighters. I know some of their students. But then it's not like cliquish. Care about some of these people out here like family.
But to me, SBG has been not only like a second family in terms of the people and the quality of the people.
Get together, train, grapple with my friends, tap or be tapped by my friends, share some knowledge, and then just go out and hang out and just just talk about stuff that's not even necessarily jiu-jitsu related. No, we go hang out, we talk about philosophy and our thoughts on, some pretty deep topics. Is everybody a part of that? No, but the guys that have been around, the girls that have been around it a long time, you sort of pay your dues and get to be a part of that sort of other world that's within SBG, and that's, to me, that's special.
So, we're going through the seminar, which was obviously fantastic. And that night, though, that evening, we were allowed to participate in Gus Nolte's brown belt Ironman. And, hearing Matt explain the meaning of it was pretty awesome. And then just to watch it all played out immediately right in front of us was, really enhanced the experience for me. It just the emotion from start to finish, watching Gus experience it with his training partners, the people that had, bled and cried with him, throughout training, and then culminating in him rolling with Matt and Travis and getting that belt tied around his waist, and it was pretty awesome.
You know, Vic, one of the other great things about the way we do things now as compared to about 15 years ago is the fact that we get to provide employment for some of our coaching staff. Some of the instructors get to make their living teaching. That includes me being able to work with my brother, which despite what he probably thinks I actually enjoy, but we're not going to tell him that because he'll get a big head. Okay, come on in.
The Ironman is where the whole gym comes together to celebrate someone's promotion up to the next belt level. It's a significant ceremony for us because it really signifies everyone coming together and being a part of that person's progress. It's all about the tribe.
This is how we give out belts in SBG all over the world. It's a ritual, it's not a test. It's kind of a celebration. Jiu-jitsu is an individual sport, of course, but unlike rock climbing or tennis or other individual sports, it actually takes a team to get someone good. No one ever really gets good at jiu-jitsu by working with one or even half a dozen of the same people. It takes a whole community. You have to work with beginners and advanced people, get your offense from tapping you guys out, and your defense from surviving against these guys. And so by coming out and rolling with having the person roll with everybody in the community, it's part of a way for you guys all to participate. And if you've been here for any time at all, you have participated in helping that person get to where they're at today. So that's what it's all about. We start over here because you're dangerous. So keep that in mind. We wouldn't want tired people rolling with white belts, no offense. But the more technical and smooth and relaxed you are, the more impressed we will all be on this side of the room, because it's not a competition, and by the time somebody's roll with 7 or 8 or 9 people in a roll, if you run out there and throw a submission on, it's not impressive. So use it as an opportunity to have a fun roll. So here we go. So first of all, Austin Candela. Larry. Jeremy. Justin. Adam. Dr. John. And last but not least, him. Okay, let's get started. Let's go.
My heroes, me brothers, where have you gone? There is something in the air, something is wrong. Where is my father, my mother, my sister, my lovers, and you all gone over to the other side. It's a shame, my dears, there's no room for me here, so I'm leaving, I'm leaving, I'm leaving
Roll with every single person in the gym until they're finished. Roll to the tap.
Is there any strategy to this?
Pace yourself, especially on a hot day.
experiences with belt promotions have been, here's your new belt, and a pat on the back, and we'll see you in class tomorrow. And, you know, it really kind of, I guess, illustrated how much these coaches cared about their students, not just their experience in jiu-jitsu, but, you know, how much they cared about helping them develop as people. And, you know, it really set the bar high for me, I think, at that point, as far as what a good coach was.
It has been a part of the UFC for years, which is fantastic, and has created world champions and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champions.
I love the coaching methods. Anytime I see Coach Thornton or any of the other SBG coaches worldwide, it always makes me a better coach, and that's important to me because it allows me to help my athletes better themselves, both on and off the mats.
You know, I wanted to know more about how to do that, how to be a better coach, and at that point I knew that these were the people that could help me.
It's the gym, and our gym is filled with great people from top to bottom.
While you might compete solo, you might be in a solo self-defense scenario, but to build up the skill set, you need training partners.
When I think that over 25 years, the founding principles of SBG, that Matt had founded SBG on, you know, aliveness, authenticity, the truth.
The tribe is incredible. The people in it are genuine. They're humble. Our coaches worldwide are extraordinary.
And how far and wide throughout the world SBG is and what it can do is just an amazing thing to be a part of.
What I love about Coach Matt is that he has always said SBG is bigger than any one person.
We are helping hundreds and thousands of people be better versions of themselves, whether it's becoming the next world champion, losing 50 pounds, kicking drugs and alcohol, learning how to stand up to bullies, learning how to just look another person in the eyes and shake their hand and say yes sir or no sir.
I've never been a part of a group of people that, as talented as they are, as skilled as they are, that they treat you like an equal. It doesn't matter who you're talking to, from guys that coach UFC fighters to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champions. They never, ever think they're above you.
It started with a bunch of people fighting to find the truth and beating the heck out of each other a little bit, but that truth has taken us to this day where you can walk into any SBG in the world on every continent but Antarctica.
But I'd have to say that the number one thing about SBG that I absolutely love is the people. Love the vibe, the environment that SBG has created. From Coach Matt, the people are just the best. On and off the mats, coaches, wives, girlfriends, brothers, sisters, everybody, extended SBG family. Everybody makes you feel at home.
It's all thanks to Matt, you know, elucidating what it is we were all looking for all those years ago when we all found him and realized we all were thinking the same thing.
It's its own living entity to me.
Carl came up to me at some point during that party when I'd been chatting with Matt and looked me in the eye and said, "You're one of us now." It took me years to figure out what that meant, but now I do.
I don't know where I'd be. Well, actually, I know exactly where I'd be without SBG.
Yeah, I can drink to that one.
I'd be in a Mexican jail or dead in a Mexican jail.
Being part of your home gym is one thing, but to be and experience being part of SBG from around the world, it's, I don't know, there's no description for that.
Here we are at the end of an Ironman, SBG Toronto, doing our thing. It's what we do. Yeah. Takes all kinds, all sizes, all shapes. Right?
SBG has become my home. It's changed my life. My kids train jiu-jitsu. We ended up with a gym. I owe a lot to SBG. So I'm proud to be SBG.
We are SBG.
How you doing? My name is John Kavanagh. I'm a head coach of Straight Blast Gym Ireland.
I'm easily the best looking Irish BJJ black belt in the organization.
Hi, this is Steve Whittier, SBG Director, owner and Chief Instructor of Straight Blast Gym East Coast, 3rd degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Rick Davison, 2nd degree black belt.
I'm Travis Davison. I'm Matt Thornton's first homegrown black belt.
I'm John Frankel. I'm the founder of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Korea.
Kisa Davison. I'm a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu.
My name is Kane Prevost. I'm a 2nd degree black belt.
Hey, I'm John Diggins. I'm a black belt.
I am Go Davison.
Hi, my name is Ray Price.
I am Amanda Diggins. I'm a black belt.
Hi, I'm John Murphy. I'm a black belt.
John Mertlick. I'm a purple belt.
I'm Lily Tego. I'm 62-year-old.
I'm Logan Grahalis.
My name is Enik Bernier.
I'm Lauren Cooper. I'm a white belt.
I'm Maggie Vespa. I'm a white belt.
I started at Straight Blast Gym in 2001.
In 1998.
It's August of 2009.
In 2007.
Summer of 2003.
Since 2007.
I've been doing this for about 7 years.
About 27 years.
8 years. For about 5 years. About a year and a half now. Got a couple months under my belt.
I'm also a father of 4.
I am a police officer.
I'm a father, a husband,
I'm a wife, a mother, a business owner.
a professor.
I am SBG.
I'm Jorgen from Tartu, from the bleak winter in Estonia, from SBG Estonia. I was training at Carl Tanswell's place for the summer in UK back in 2006 in Manchester. We had just finished a grueling conditioning session. I was an aspiring MMA fighter, first time in a big gym, and we headed back to the gym for cool down, and everybody was grabbing tennis balls, and me, back then I didn't know anything about muscle care and trigger points and that stuff, and I didn't know what the tennis balls were for, and I asked Carl, and he looked at me dead serious and said that you have to put it in your mouth and chew on it to strengthen your jaw muscles to prevent from being KO'd so easily. And I, as an obedient student, I put the tennis ball in my mouth and started chewing. And only when everybody started giggling and looking at me funny, then I understood that I had been pranked again by the great jokester in SBG, Carl.
Hi, I'm Carl Tanswell from Manchester, England. I like Bob Marley, I like reggae, and I'm a mixed martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, and I am SBG.
One tribe, one vibe.
One tribe, one vibe.
It's all about the tribe.
I'd never look back, man. It's been awesome. And I look forward to another 25 years and another 100 years after that.
No one would do this if there weren't great people around to do it with.
Yeah. How does it feel to have founded something that has grown so big?
I get asked that question a lot, and it is amazing if you look at how SBG started. Was me on a mad pursuit for truth in combat, truth in fighting, with a tiny little gym in Kaiser, Oregon, and now we have gyms all over the world, academies on every continent, world's biggest MMA stars, some of the most sought-after coaches. I've had the opportunity to travel everywhere, and the truth is, if I had set out to create this intentionally, it wouldn't be what it is. So I don't mean this with any sense of false humility. Humility is not necessarily my strong point anyway, but I honestly don't feel authorship of it that way. What I feel like I did was I started with intentions that were authentic, and for whatever reason, and I don't know the answer, regardless of whatever else went on in my life, I always stuck to those intentions as it relates to my job, to be honest and truthful as it relates to fighting. And what that did was that brought to me this group of people that are absolutely amazing. And when you ask me about, what's it feel like to start something so big, the truth is, it feels if I were to be honest with you about how I really feel, I'd say I have just an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the human beings that I've had an opportunity to spend the last 25 years of my life with. And they're the ones that have, created SBG, from Lewis, who was the first black belt, and crazy Cuban who flew me out to Florida, I don't even know how many years ago. John Kavanaugh, my second black belt, who was, when I met him, he was unsure whether or not he was going to pursue his engineering degree. He had just graduated with an engineering degree or teach. And he decided to give it a year and see what happens, and we can see where that went. And John's taken concepts that all of us have used around the world in the organization, and he's proven on the world stage at the highest level of competition that there is that what we do is phenomenal. Carl, my third black belt, who's like a brother to me, and who, when I think about what it means to be a good coach and to be dedicated and held responsible to your athletes, I think about Carl. Travis, my fourth black belt, my first black belt, homegrown black belt from my gym. As my father would say, Travis is not my right-hand man, he is my right hand. The new SBG, the expanded SBG, the SBG whose business practices are just as cutting edge as their training practices are, has come as a large part due to Travis and his wife, his better half, Keesa's work and hard work. And they are just a phenomenal family, phenomenal team, inspiration to everybody. Whittier, I can't forget Steve Whittier. He has played a key role in the gym growing to where it is. And he's such a great person, always able to help everybody out in the gym, runs the East Coast. And then I think about my own black belts here at the gym. I have, I'm privileged to have 4 black belts that have been with me for years and years, and they're still there every day on the mat. You have Rick Davison, Travis's brother, who's kind of the heart and soul of my gym, runs my comp team. Wouldn't be SBG without Rick. You have Kane Prevost, who I think has become known throughout the world despite the fact that he doesn't travel, because a lot of the concepts that we use and even the terminology that we use, she came from Kane. He's kind of the professor in a way, one of the scientists, great scientists of our organization. Diggins, John Diggins, and I have to say especially the last 10 years, certainly the last 6, I know John's supposed to be my student, technically is my student, has been since he was a white belt. But I have to say, I'm fairly sure I've learned more about jiu-jitsu, about what it means to roll well from Diggins in the last 5 years than I did the previous 15. His wife, Amanda, who is an inspiration in my fastest black belt, I think the org's fastest black belt, she's an amazing human being. Paul Sharp, Ray Price, these guys bring an authenticity and a reality to what we do that keeps everybody honest and makes sure that what we do really stays true to fighting as opposed to just becoming a jiu-jitsu or MMA organization. John Frankel, if you meet Frankel, the Harvard professor and scholar of Korean studies who teaches in Seoul, comes several times a year and always brings new wizardry of jiu-jitsu to the organization. I've learned a lot from John in the last couple of years too. He's been somebody that I've looked up to as far as how to train and how to model myself on the mat when I roll. Not the best at it, I still roll a little bit harder than he does, but I'm trying. And Chris Connolly, if I think about Connolly, stayed a brown belt for 10 years because he didn't want to take a black belt from anybody else. And when we finally reconnected and I gave him his black belt, that was very meaningful because it's obvious he is heart and soul SBG. Adam and Rory Singer. Adam was the first American outside Oregon to contact me because of a quote from Teddy Roosevelt that he saw. And those two guys, amazing coaches in their own right, coached Forrest Griffin and others, the first SBG coaches back in the day to really get some people at the higher levels of UFC. They're the kind of human beings who you're glad you're friends with them because it makes you feel like a better person. And then I think of the new crop we have coming, all of Canada, Steve and Rich Beaupit and Jason Lansuki and John and the whole group up there in Canada, amazing athletes that are just growing leaps and bounds. I know Steve's gym just doubled in the last 12 months. Phenomenal success. Rich is always an inspiration to me, and if I ever have problems raising my kids, he's the first person I pick up the phone and call because he's someone who I really admire for being very good at the most important job that any of us have, which is being a dad, among being good at other things, but he's a phenomenal father. Idaho, Georgia, Australia, these are all new, but the athletes in Idaho, male and female, those athletes represent, I think, just what it means to have strong character. And I am really looking forward to visiting the South again and our gym in Atlanta and going to Australia for the first time to see Ben's gym and visit our SBG family, newly expanded family out there. And then I think about my wife. I wouldn't have met my wife if it wasn't for this organization. I wouldn't have my 2 daughters. That's SBG.
This is SBG, and you will be okay.